I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Philippians 4:13. This verse speaks about how through God anything is possible. This verse plays a role in the movie Soul Surfer. Today we will be giving our speech on the movie Soul Surfer. Directed by Sean McNamara, Soul Surfer is an inspiring, faith-filled movie based on the true story of Bethany Hamilton. It follows her trials after she loses her arm to a shark while surfing. After the initial shock of losing her arm, Bethany finds herself determined to continue competitive surfing. She relies on God to help her overcome her obstacles, and eventually relearns how to surf competitively despite her handicap. In this speech, we will be talking about the servant speaker concepts in Schultz's book, An Essential Guide to Public Speaking, that can be found throughout this movie. First, we will discuss the fruits of the Spirit: faithfulness, patience, and peace. Next, we will talk about how speaking up for others and truthful speaking is found throughout this movie. Then we will discuss speaking life or death, and God, doubt, and honesty talk. Lastly, we will talk about how this movie portrays Christians as faithful to God and as a strong community, and also what other questions this movie raises, such as, what can we do when we trust God? What unlocked potential do we have? If Bethany can overcome and accomplish her dream despite her handicap, what can we do?
Hey guys, so now we're going to talk about what it means to be a servant speaker and all the characteristics that are demonstrated and make up a servant speaker. And we'll be discussing, as mentioned, Bethany Hamilton and this wonderful movie Soul Surfer, where she demonstrates a great fortitude, courage, patience, etc. And so as we discuss this, I will be specifically discussing what it means to be a servant speaker by dissecting the fruits of the Spirit, which is laid out by Schultz in his book that we all learned, and which is was first shared by Paul as he writes into the Galatians in chapter 5, verse 22. And Paul lays out what it means to be the fruit of the Spirit as he writes, "On the other hand, the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control." Paul then goes on to say, "No law can touch such things as these," and continues, "Since we are living by the Spirit, let our behavior be guided by the Spirit, and let us not be conceited or provocative and envious towards one another." This is very important what Paul writes, and a very important characteristic that Schultz takes out from this, as he says, the mouth and the actions of a servant speaker must become one, as well as the words and the heart of the servant speaker must become one. And this is demonstrated very clearly by Bethany Hamilton, as we see in the movie as she progresses to accept her new reality after the post-shark attack. So as mentioned, I will talk about what it means to be a servant speaker by the fruits of the Spirit, which I think Bethany demonstrates all of them, but I'll specifically talk about faithfulness, patience, and peace. So for faithfulness, which can be described as a strong, unshakable belief in something, complete trust and confidence in something other than oneself. And Bethany demonstrates this faithfulness very clearly in every action and every speak that she does post-shark attack. We begin to see this as she begins to be honest with herself, honest with her friends and family, honest with surfing her new reality, and honest with God. She then very quickly begins to accept this and never gives up on her family and friends, on surfing, on her new reality, and most importantly, never giving up on God. We then see her use all her God-given ability to glorify Him, and she does this all wholeheartedly, which is probably the most important aspect of this faithfulness. We then see her begin to demonstrate patience, which can be described as the capacity to accept or to tolerate delay, trouble, or suffering without ever getting angry or upset. She demonstrates this patience, as we can very clearly see, as she begins to accept the new reality with one arm. And we see this as she is quickly discharged from the hospital, and she goes home and tries to make a sandwich but is unable to open up the bag of bread. However, as the movie progresses, she very quickly begins to learn new tasks and is able to make breakfast for her family, which in my perspective is a very moving part of the movie, as she demonstrates a great deal of patience. She then also learns to discover the timing of God, which Schultz describes as the kairos, which is something very important for us also in our own life, to have patience and rely on God's timing. And once we accept this timing of God, life is awesome, which we see in Bethany Hamilton, in her words and in her actions and in her speak. She then lastly demonstrates peace, which can be described as freedom from disturbance. We can see this peace as the way she loves her life, just the way it is, and she blesses God for everything. And once this peace is obtained, you can see it pour out of her and begin to affect her other people and make them also better, as she helps build and shows this demonstration of peace to her father, most importantly, her family and friends, and to everyone else around her. And so, as we begin to talk more about the servant speaker's characteristics, I hope you can clearly see that she demonstrates this, speaks of the characteristics of what it means to be a servant speaker, using the fruits of the Spirit: faithfulness, peace, and patience. Thank you.
According to Quentin Schulte, in terms of speaking life or death, he says, the concept of speaking life or death reflects the deepest nature of language as relationship building and relationship destroying action. Schulte also says, the essence of speaking life is using language responsibly to serve others. How does this relate to Bethany? Through the movie, Bethany denies her own strength by denying God's plan for her. She receives encouraging words from her youth group leader, Sarah, and she also receives reassurance from her dad. So again, Bethany denies her own strength. So when she's having a conversation with her youth group leader, Sarah, she says to Sarah, how can this be God's plan for me? And this is an example of speaking death, because Bethany, in a sense, is destroying her relationship with God. Because, as Schulte said, speaking death is relationship destroying, where speaking life is relationship building. In terms of something good will come out of this, in response to Bethany's how is this or why is this God's plan for me, Sarah, the youth group leader, says, I have to believe that something good is going to come out of this. And this is an example of speaking life, because Sarah's positive about Bethany's future, and she believes, no, even though this bad thing happened, something good has to come out of this. And so this next video clip here I'm going to show shows that, from the movie Soul Surfer, shows that interaction between Bethany and Sarah.
How could this be God's plan for me? I don't understand. I don't know why terrible things happen to us sometimes, but I have to believe that something good is going to come out of it.
So again, in terms of speaking life or death, Bethany receives reassurance from her dad. And so they're having a conversation after the first surfing competition since the accident, where she wasn't successful. And so she kind of asks her dad, like, what now? And her dad says, you need to listen for what comes next. And this is an example of speaking life, because her dad is positive about her future, and her dad is encouraging her to allow God to lead her in the right direction. And actually, later in the movie, Bethany goes on a mission trip to Thailand with her youth group and rediscovers that love for surfing, because she actually teaches a little girl how to surf again. And that's how she kind of gets her motivation back to want to start surfing again. And so I'm going to show you another video clip here from the movie Soul Surfer, and it's going to be that conversation between Bethany and her dad that I just described.
What am I supposed to do now?
I don't know.
And how am I supposed to know?
Anytime it's right, you don't know. Tell them to pray. Can you listen?
Listen for what?
What comes next?
And so in terms of God, doubt, and honest talk, Schulte says, we then need to begin determining why, when, and how to use God talk, which is believers' foundation for big picture truth. And this relates to Bethany, because Bethany and her family questioned why she was attacked by this shark. And then in terms of doubt talk, Schulte says, Doubting some of our own rhetoric helps us to be honest and accountable. And this relates to Bethany because she gives up on her dream of surfing. And then in terms of honest talk, Schulte says, honest talk avoids intentional deception. And this relates to Bethany because Bethany tells herself that she will never surf again. And so again, in terms of God talk, Bethany and her family question, why was she attacked by the shark? What's the bigger picture here? Why did this happen? And more importantly, why was this God's plan for Bethany? And then in terms of doubt, Bethany gives up on her dreams. And again, in that clip I just showed you, Bethany was talking to her dad after that surf competition, and she kind of gives up on herself and kind of says, I'm done. Like, what now? And then in terms of honest talk, Bethany tells herself, no, I will never surf again. And even in terms of giving up on her dreams, that's basically what she's doing. She's trying to be honest with herself, but at the same time, she ends up giving up on her dreams. And so throughout the entire film, Bethany, her family, and the community all rely on God throughout their entire lives, but especially when there's a difficult situation.
Not only does Bethany Hamilton show faithfulness, patience, and peace, she also shows that she speaks up for others and that she speaks truthfully in what she says. In Quentin Schultz's book, An Essential Guide to Public Speaking, he describes speaking up for others as a situation when somebody speaks for somebody who is not able to speak up for themselves, or when somebody speaks for somebody who is being treated unjustly or unfairly. In Soul Surfer, Bethany Hamilton shows in one situation that she speaks up for others when she encourages Alana, her best friend, to do a photo shoot without her. This is a photo shoot that she's been wanting to do with her best friend for the longest time, but because she is missing her arm, she is unable to do it. She speaks up for Alana and makes the decision for her that she should be doing the photo shoot even without her, and that she wants Alana's life to be better and wants Alana to do something for herself. In another situation, Bethany goes on a mission trip. This alone speaks that she speaks up for others and that she wants to spread awareness about the situation that other people are in, and that she's willing to spend her time to go help others in need. During this mission trip, she meets a kid. This kid is very quiet and does not talk, and he is very shy and often runs away from people. She speaks up for this kid in a way that doesn't use words. She takes the kid surfing. You can tell that this kid had been longing to talk to someone but has been very afraid to, as he probably lost his parents in the aftermath of an earthquake in the location that she was on a mission trip to. She takes this kid surfing and helps him to come out of his shell and to become a happier kid, despite the situation and the circumstances that he was in. In another situation, Bethany receives fan mail from other people, kids all around the world, who are encouraging her and showing her how much she encourages them. In one of the letters she receives from a kid, he has disabilities, and she considers this kid inspiring. She speaks up for the kids that have wrote her and have disabilities like her, and that she competes even despite her circumstances. She speaks up for these kids to give them encouragement and to show them that anything that they do or want to do is possible as long as they try. Another characteristic that Bethany portrays is that she speaks truthfully. In Quentin Schultz's book, An Essential Guide to Public Speaking, he describes truthful speaking as when somebody speaks the honest truth from deep down. In the movie Soul Surfer, Bethany Hamilton shows that she speaks truthfully when she is talking to her youth leader, Sarah. Sarah asks her how she is after her accident with a shark, and at first she says that she is fine. When digging deep down, Sarah said that she can be honest with her, and Bethany finally reveals that she is not entirely okay and that she doesn't understand God's will in this entire situation, and that she really would like to know what God's purpose was for her. Another situation that Bethany portrays truthful speaking is when she's presented with a prosthetic arm and she decides that on camera it is not something for her. She decides to tell the world publicly that she does not want the prosthetic arm and that she thought maybe with a shirt on she would be normal and look like she has two arms instead of one. She is truthful in the fact that she does not want the arm and she would be better off with just one real arm. Another way that Bethany portrays truthful speaking is when she says that surfing is not the most important thing in life, and that love is. This lines up with the Bible verse 1 Corinthians 13:13 and says, "But now these three remain, faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love." Bethany speaks truthfully about love and says that throughout this entire situation she has learned that love is the most important thing that she can accomplish in life, and that loving other people is one of the best things that she can give to others. This speaks truthfully in the fact that she lines up with the true Word of God throughout the Bible from Bible verses. This is how Bethany shows the characteristics in this movie, Soul Surfer.
Soul Surfer is a faith-based movie, so we can be sure that Christian elements will be found throughout it. The movie also raises other questions about life in general. In this movie, the Christians and the church are portrayed as faithful, always trusting in God no matter how difficult life is. Bethany, although hesitant at first, decides to trust that God is in control even after she loses her arm. Her family and church leaders encourage her and help her understand that God knows her situation and will help her through it. The church in particular is shown to be a strong community, inside and outside of the church. They help comfort and support Bethany and her family as they go through their trials. Also, even though Bethany had gone through some tragic incidents, she put herself aside and went on a missions trip. The missions trip was an eye-opening experience for Bethany, and she realized how lucky she was. Going on the missions trip illustrates the selflessness of the church and the Christians in this movie, as well as their love for helping others. The questions that this movie raises is, what hidden potential do we have when we give God control and trust Him? Bethany, despite her handicap, manages to return to competitive surfing. If she can do that, what can we do? As you can see, Soul Surfer is an inspiring faith-based story of a girl overcoming her life-changing injury. The movie shows that good can come out of a bad situation when we trust God. Some of the servant speaker qualities that we discussed are the fruits of the Spirit, speaking up for others, truthful speaking, speaking life or death, and God, doubt, and honesty talk. A strong Christian theme is found throughout the movie, raising questions about what we can do in our own lives. Soul Surfer is a movie that I would definitely recommend to others.